After declaring independence on July 4, 1776, in Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the colonies then had to decide how to govern themselves. The governing body that declared independence was the Continental Congress. In 1777, the Continental Congress authorized the drafting of a document to create a working government. Each colony had already developed state constitutions. In 1777, the Continental Congress created the Articles of Confederation, in which the states were sovereign or independent and joined together in a league of friendship. They didn't want to form a government that was too powerful over the people, since they were fighting to gain independence from a government that was powerful over the people. The Articles of Confederation created America's first form of government. The Confederation led America to victory over the British in the Revolutionary War, and America became an independent nation, with the states in reality being the sovereign nations. This Confederation had a very weak central government, and soon the weaknesses of the Confederation led to problems. The Confederation was so weak that oftentimes delegates from different states didn't show up to vote on matters that were seen as important for all of the states. Other weaknesses included economic problems. During the Revolutionary War, the Continental Congress printed money in order to try to finance the war costs. This printing of money led to inflation, which is a major increase in prices. The Continental, which was the colonial dollar, lost value since it was printed in large amounts. As a result, the economy was declining since prices were high, and the Continental dollar was losing value. In addition, the Confederation didn't have power to raise taxes in order to get money to pay the war debt to the French, who aided the colonies in victory over the British. The Confederation Congress couldn't solve boundary disputes as the colonies began claiming Western land. There was no central executive to enforce laws passed for all of the states. There was no central court system to solve disputes between the states. One of the major disputes was over trade, which the Confederation couldn't control. Maryland and Virginia quarreled over which state controlled trade in the Chesapeake Bay. After the Revolutionary War, the new independent states were experiencing an economic depression due to the printing of money that led to higher prices. It especially hurt the farmers and the merchants. The event that showed all of the problems under the Articles of Confederation, and that these problems either needed fixed or young America would collapse, was Shays' Rebellion. In 1786, Massachusetts, along with other states, was suffering from rough economic times as mentioned previously. Farmers who were unable to pay debts were being put in prison. Daniel Shays led a group of farmers to disrupt trials and prevent farmers from being punished. The Confederation Congress was powerless to do anything about this revolt. Many in the states realized something needed to be done before everything fell to pieces. Shays' Rebellion showed that the Articles of Confederation were weak and needed to be strengthened. A year before this, George Washington had led the Mount Vernon Conference between Virginia and Maryland to resolve the disputes over the Chesapeake Bay. More states looked to solve some of the problems in the Annapolis Convention in September of 1786. Realizing the problems needed all of the states to resolve, a larger convention was planned for May of 1787 in Philadelphia. This Philadelphia Conference would end up being the Constitutional Convention. The Founding Fathers knew that governments either formed by chance or by war throughout history. They knew they were doing something unique by sitting down and forming a government. Therefore, they looked to create the perfect government, one with authority and power, yet one that protects the people. They wanted to prevent tyranny from ever happening, since they experienced this under the king. The goal at the Constitutional Convention was to fix the Articles of Confederation. However, the result was the writing of the Constitution, which replaced the Articles and is our current system of government. The Constitution created a federal system. A system of government is how power is divided. In a federal system, there is a strong central government, but the subdivisions, which we have as states, have power too. We see this today with our three levels of government. The national government is divided into state governments, and the states are divided into counties which have working governments as well. The style of government that the Constitution created was a republic. This is a form of democracy that means the voters elect leaders to make decisions for them. It is also called representative democracy. When writing the Constitution, the Founding Fathers made sure that the American government would be limited. A limited government is one that does not have complete power over its people. The fact that this new Constitution established rules for the new government and restrictions on its power makes America a constitutional government as well. The biggest argument at the Constitutional Convention was over representation in the new lawmaking branch. The Virginia Plan, suggested by the states with bigger populations, wanted to have the new legislature or lawmaking body be based on each state's population. States with bigger populations would get more representatives or lawmakers. The bigger states said this was fair, and if it wasn't based on population, then they'd be punished for having more people. The smaller states opposed this plan. The smaller states thought that it was not fair because the bigger states would control the new government, or at least the lawmaking. The smaller states feared they would have less say in the new government. Therefore, the smaller states proposed the New Jersey Plan, which wanted a legislature or lawmaking body with the same number of representatives from each state. Neither side was willing to give in. With both sides sticking to their positions on the issue, a compromise would be necessary in order to move the convention forward. Roger Sherman developed the Connecticut Plan, better known as the Great Compromise. This Great Compromise would set up a bicameral legislature. What this means is the Congress that it created would have two houses or two chambers. One chamber would be based on population, which came from the Virginia Plan, while the other house or chamber that came from the New Jersey Plan would have equal state representation in it. This Great Compromise set up the U.S. Congress. The Senate, which would be based on the New Jersey Plan of equal state representation, has 2 senators per state. The other chamber, the House of Representatives from the Virginia Plan, is based on population. So the Great Compromise made both sides happy. The Senate satisfied the small states with the New Jersey Plan, and the House of Representatives satisfied the big states with the Virginia Plan. Today, the U.S. Congress works as this bicameral legislature, as both the House of Representatives and the Senate pass laws for the entire nation. The Constitution was completed and signed on September 17, 1787. It wouldn't go into effect until it was ratified by the states. This wasn't a sure thing. The Federalists were those who supported this new Constitution. There were some who opposed the new Constitution. This group, who was against it and wanted to keep the Confederation, were called Anti-Federalists. The Federalists, led by James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay, wrote a total of 85 articles on why the new Constitution was good and needed to be ratified or approved by the states. These articles would be called the Federalist Papers. Their purpose was to help increase support for the Constitution. The major argument that the Anti-Federalists had was that the new Constitution did not have a Bill of Rights. The Anti-Federalists weren't unpatriotic. In fact, they were some of the famous patriots of the Revolution era. They included Patrick Henry, George Mason, and Richard Henry Lee. The Federalists argued for ratification of the Constitution and said that a Bill of Rights was not needed since the Constitution did not allow the federal government to violate any rights. On the other hand, the Anti-Federalists did oppose the ratification of the Constitution, saying that they favored the Confederation because they feared that a future federal government could be tyrannical and violate rights. The Federalists and the Anti-Federalists would strike a deal. If the Constitution was ratified, then the first order of business would be to develop a Bill of Rights to amend to the Constitution. In 1788, the Constitution was ratified and went into effect. George Washington would be inaugurated as the first president in 1789 and would set the model for future presidents. And in 1791, the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, were added to the Constitution.